We're back. Sports Take. Thanks for hanging out with us. Tony Shields, Rob Ellis. Hit the like button if you could. All right, joining us right now, Les, I'm going to guess the first year that you covered the Birds, I'm going to say you began right around 2000. Would I be close?
Very close. It was 2002. It was the year of the Tampa Bay debacle. That was my first brush with the resounding disappointments of that era, and it was probably one of the most memorable games I've ever covered. Yeah, that was my first year. I was still covering Flyers in 2000. Heck of a playoff run for the Flyers.
Oh yeah.
In 2000. Right after the Winter Olympics. I went to the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City in 2002 and came back and started covering the Eagles just as they got rid of Jeremiah Trotter for the first time.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Now, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Les, did you start a newsletter where people can check you out? Where can people?
Yeah, I've got a new thing. I'm calling it Les Bowen's John, lesbowensjohn.com, spelled in the traditional way.
Okay.
And, it's, I don't need any money from it or anything. I'm just trying to, have some fun. And I'm a whore for attention, basically.
Get in line, Les. We all are. Yes. And by the way, I love the shot. Love the shot. Cool.
There's work going on in the house today. I have a better background in there, but so I'm out on the back porch. I had the space heater plugged in, but then it kind of blew the circuit, so I kind of had to turn that off. But I'm doing all right.
All right, you're a gamer.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, so let's start with this, Les. I want to start with the defensive side of the ball. And Tony and I we just had a pretty spirited debate about this. But how fixable is it? I mean, I know there's only so much you can do with personnel, but man, the numbers are just in the basement almost across the board. How much better can they be in your estimation?
It's scary. I mean, I was listening to Sean Desai yesterday, and he's talking about the last two games, which, of course, have been just as bad as defense has ever been anywhere in any era. But it's not just the last two games. I mean, we know that. We can see the league rankings. This is an historically bad defense. And can it get better? Well, yeah. I mean, the defensive line ought to be as good as anybody's defensive line anywhere in the league. Except it seems like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter have maybe hit the wall a little bit, rookie wall. They aren't playing nearly as well as they were earlier. Josh Sweat isn't getting the kind of pressure that he was getting earlier. They can do better there if guys are, rested up enough or whatever the heck is going on there. But are they going to be a lot better at linebacker or in the back end? Kind of think they are what they are. Maybe Sean Desai can do a better job, as he always says, of putting them in better positions. But it is kind of what it is. They've made they went out and got Roby, they went out and got Byard, and it hasn't really moved the needle.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Les. Thanks again for coming on to the show. You think about this team, more notably the coaching staff, and they've been under fire pretty much all season for their decision-making, the game plans, the play calling, so on and so forth. I'm curious to know what's been your overall evaluation of not just Sean Desai, but Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni and how they've been trying to get their job done and deploy their philosophies.
I've been underwhelmed, Tone. Let me back up and say it is one of the things we thought about getting ready for this season is how hard it is to get back to the Super Bowl, especially if you just got there and lost. Tim McManus from ESPN had a good stat in the preseason about, I think, the Minnesota Vikings in 1974 were the last NFC team to return to the Super Bowl after losing it the year before. I mean, a lot of stuff conspires against you. You played a horrendously long year and you didn't get any reward out of it. Nick took it very easy on them in the spring stuff and all that. They didn't even have to show up for most of it. It's kind of, and injuries catch up with you and so on. But all that having been said, the coaching staff, they seem to go into this season flat-footed. They didn't anticipate that teams would really look at the RPOs and figure out ways to limit that. They didn't really tweak or reimagine anything. Sean Desai, he's new here, and he has 5 starters from last year that aren't here. In that respect, he might not be as culpable as the other guys. With Brian Johnson, I thought that would just work out wonderfully, because he has this lifelong history with Jalen Hurts, and he was here last year as the quarterback's coach. It's not like he wasn't watching Shane Steichen a lot more closely than we were, but I haven't seen innovation. I haven't seen, like last week when they wouldn't throw to the middle of the field, and his explanation was, well, we really like the matchups we had on the perimeter. Well, okay, but the perimeter's the perimeter. There's a sideline there that acts as an extra defender, and I'm not even an XO guy, but I know that. And if you have guys like A.J. Brown that are wonderful in the middle of the field, or Dallas Goedert, what? Especially when it's like halftime and it's 24-6, and you haven't been able to make the perimeter work for you, how about trying something a little different? And you just don't see every week on these broadcasts, you hear the analysts talk about, boy, wasn't that a great play design, how they got, they managed to put the linebacker in conflict, and, the Eagles linebacker didn't know whether to cover this guy or this guy. You don't ever hear that said when the Eagles have the ball.
Yep.
Just seem to want A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to beat the guys covering them, and they'll throw the ball up for them, and they'll either get it or not. And I don't know. I could, I'm sure you want to ask another question, but I can go on.
No, I love this.
Yeah, because Rob, I'm sure you would agree with this, right?
Yeah.
That has to be malpractice on the coaching side. You've been coaching this team since 2021. The scheme is pretty much the scheme in the system, and what you guys have been doing has been pretty much the same. And you've failed to evolve this offense. And it's so funny you say, they refused to go into the middle of the field, and they stayed on the perimeter, and that's kind of their MO all throughout the season, right? Sean Desai said at press conference, well, McCarthy, those guys did something different than we expected. Well, why can't the offense do something different than what other defenses expect, right? I feel like the coaching staff has been living off of the lifeblood of this talent, and they have not been doing a good job at, their own jobs, right? They're expecting the guys to win their matchups. Okay, coaches, maybe you can win your matchup next time.
And the other thing, Les, real quick on that, it's rare that you don't have an identity. And
right.
I don't know what they are. They're a 10-3 team, and it's tied for the best record in football, and it's unbelievable. But what are they exactly?
I don't know. People want them to run the ball all the time, and I kind of resist that a little bit, because to me, I've been hearing that ever since I started covering the Eagles.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are just stuck in the 20th century. You need a big running back. You need a linebacker that's going to, dominate the field like Jeremiah Trotter did. That's not the era that we're in.
Yep.
But they don't have, like this Dallas game, there was a point early in the second half when they just started running like 4 or 5 times in a row. Well, where did that come from? Why were they doing that? What was it setting up something? It couldn't tell if it was. They ignore the run for long stretches of the game, and then they go through fits of doing it. And then I just don't know what you're right. I don't know what their identity is. And I really hate what this is doing to Jalen Hurts. Hurts is getting a lot of flack, some of it deserved, but you see him go out there like 2 weeks ago against the Niners, and he's standing back there looking around, kind of direct guys like, no, run over there. Yeah, okay, try this way a little bit. The offensive line is holding off the pass rush for like 10 seconds. Something's wrong there. Jalen Hurts isn't an idiot. Yeah. Why can't they have plays where Jalen Hurts drops back, finds a receiver, and throws the ball? You never see that. Mm-hmm. It's a mess, and it really confounds me, frankly. And we don't get good answers on these things. They don't seem to see it the way we see it. I don't understand that. I really don't. I don't see how anybody who's been around the NFL for a long time, like these guys have, can watch the film of these games and think, well, we're doing the right things, but we just need to, that route needs to be a little tighter, or somebody needs to hold his block a little longer. It's you need to do something different. You really do.
Well, I think the interesting thing about that, Les, is, look at a team like the Niners who play to the strengths of Purdy, and it's out quick. They're utilizing Debo, who's kind of built like AJ is. And it's like the Eagles, it feels like it's very slow developing. There's very little eye candy before the snap. And you've lived through this. I mean, one of the biggest downfalls of good coaches is when you lose your assistants. Andy went through it. Doug went through it. And I'm worried that we might, and I'm not ready to pronounce anything yet. It's too early, but I feel like we might be going down that same road here with the Eagles.
Yeah, especially when you look at some of these issues, like maybe not offense, well, with Brian Johnson certainly, but look at the defense and the position coaches. The fact that they lost Denard Wilson, who was the defensive backs coach, because they didn't promote him. They went out and got Sean Desai instead of making Denard Wilson the coordinator. Are the DBs being coached well right now? Are the linebackers being coached well right now? Gannon took the linebackers coach with him to Arizona. Who are these guys they put in here? They're not like renowned NFL coaches. I brought up to someone else this week that broadcast of the Eagles Cowboys. They spent a lot of time on Al Harris, who's the Cowboys defensive backs coach, who was on that Eagles team, that first Eagles team I covered. Right. Probably the best dressed Eagle of that era, I would say. But Al Harris he's probably going to be a defensive coordinator after this season somewhere. This is a guy with a resume, with a background, people know who Al Harris is. Mm-hmm. Who are these guys and what are they doing? Why isn't Sidney Brown ready to be, an every down player? Why does, I'm drawing a blank, Eli Ricks look like he's never played football before when they put him out here? Or the guy they tried to use who took the two penalties on the same play.
Kelee Ringo,
Kelee Ringo, the draft pick this year. Yep.
It's game whatever, the season's almost over. I mean, if you throw that guy out there in week 1 and he doesn't know what he's doing, that's okay. But no, it's time, and they need these guys to step up. They've invested draft capital in all these guys from Georgia and Alabama, and we've lauded them for doing this. But and Nakobe Dean is out for the season. Nolan Smith is finally getting a few reps here and there. A lot of this Kelee Ringo, so far it's a mixed bag. It really is, other than Jalen Carter.
Les, when you look at this team, right, injuries happen and some things you can't control, right? But I think what makes this situation for the Philadelphia Eagles so scary is because a lot of the things that's going on is things that they can most likely probably control. Getting your guys on the field early enough in the season so they can get some reps. Having a better approach in terms of your offense, so on and so forth. And one can only ask, has this team, been skating on thin ice all season, but we've just been ignoring it because they've been winning games?
Yeah. Well, I think that's absolutely true. They get a little bit of a mulligan for me because they have played an incredibly tough schedule. Mm-hmm. And some of these wins would have been more impressive if they'd been playing a lower caliber of opponent, but they weren't, And I think your hope is that they skate through these games, that they win miraculously when somebody drops a pass or something, and they learn from it and get better. But, oftentimes in sports, that's not how it works. And I bring up when I covered the Flyers a lot because the Flyers played 82 games a year, and you get to see all kinds of different trends and, ups and downs. And whenever the Flyers won a game that they shouldn't have won, that, maybe the other goalie let in a couple bad goals and they didn't really play very well, but they won. That didn't lead to, they didn't go on a great streak of playing great after that. What tended to happen is they got their butts kicked the next night because they were kind of like, hey, everything's going to work out all right. And I kind of think we saw that from the Eagles, even though they kept claiming that they were going to make corrections and they were going to, get these things right. I think the opposite happened. I think their problems became more entrenched, and they didn't really go to the wall to change the things that were wrong. They just sort of, Kansas City, really good team. Yeah, they dropped the ball, but their receivers aren't that good. So yeah, we'll be all right. And you have to Buffalo. That
right.
Sean Desai's thing about the last 2 weeks and the defense. Watch the Buffalo game and how their defense played.
Yeah.
Allen,
other than that pick, Les carved them up. I mean, Allen does that against a lot of teams, but he did. He took them apart in that game. Let me ask you, I think we all agree that Sirianni's a good emotional leader who connects. And I think all of those, that's very important stuff, no doubt.
Yes.
Can he X and O his way out of this? Is the big question for me right now.
That is a great question. And that's one I ponder, Rob. I wish I had a good answer for you, because that's something that I have kind of had in the back of my mind for a while. And coaches kind of fall into categories. And you're right. That is his category. He's the emotional leader guy. He's not the strategic genius guy. Maybe he needs a strategic genius guy, in his corner to help him out a little bit with that stuff. There's nothing wrong with being an emotional leader type of guy. Obviously, I mean, last year showed us that you can have great success that way. He connects with the players. It's almost like he's a much younger person than he really is. He's almost like a 25-year-old running around out there on the sideline, jumping up and down. And so we used to make, when things were good, we made fun of like how Jalen Hurts would try to
calm him down. Yeah.
Jalen was like his dad or something, but
yeah,
that's kind of who he is. He is not the cerebral,
buttoned up
mastermind kind of guy. And, that's, you got to figure a way. Jeffrey Lurie certainly is is more toward that line of football. And I don't think this is going to last the way it is. If this season goes down in flames, Lurie will have a few thoughts about what Nick needs to do next
year. Some of the emotional
stuff. We saw how
stuff,
that worked out with Doug Peterson. So,
right.
We'll just it's going to be real interesting around here if they don't win this week, I guess is one thing I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Les, we're watching these games these past couple weeks, and the body language hasn't been right. The sideline camera cuts, looking at the players' faces and looking at the coaches' faces. It just hasn't been right. I'm looking at Nick Sirianni in that Dallas game, and he looked like a man that had no answers for what was going on in front of him. And that's not a good place to be, because we may not be astute on X's and O's, we may not be the greatest football minds in the room, but I know what it looks like when a man doesn't have answers, and that's what it looked like on that sideline in Dallas. And I'm curious to know, do you believe the players, based off what we've seen the past couple of games, based off the body language, based off what we're seeing from them emotionally, right? Do you believe that, or do you think it's plausible that these players are disenchanted with the game plan? Do you believe they still have confidence in what Nick Sirianni is telling them from a game plan perspective?
Well, Tony, you've already seen a little bit of evidence of that. I think Derek Gunn quoted an anonymous player the other day as complaining about how predictable the offense was and so forth. This is what happens when things aren't going well. I've been fortunate in covering the Eagles. I haven't covered a lot of really terrible teams, but I've covered a few. That 4-12 year, the last year of Andy, the last year of Doug, even the last year of Chip Kelly, which the team wasn't horrendous, but it was certainly disappointing. There's a point. One of the big thing athletes want from a coach is, can you make me better? Can you lead me on into success? And what you were saying about Nick not having answers, I mean, that'll kill you in the locker room. Players can see that, and that doesn't go well with anybody. These are short, finite careers these guys have, and they want things to be moving in the right direction. If things are moving in the wrong direction, before too long, you're going to get well, I'm doing my job, but that guy over there, teams fall apart quickly.
Listen,
Chemistry,
it's funny you say that because, like you said, players, can you make me better? And I feel like
yeah,
as a coach, your job is to elevate your players. It's not the players' job to elevate the coaches. And I feel
right.
like this, when you really look at this in a 3-year span, I feel like these players have been elevating these coaches. And now we're seeing these guys, okay, the league is caught up with what you're doing. Now, what can you do to put these guys in a better
Right.
position so you can elevate their talent? And we're not seeing that. So I think, to me, in my personal opinion, I think the trust is starting to wane between Nick Sirianni and his personnel, because I think they're saying, okay, what are you doing to make us better? What are you doing to schematically get us out of these situations? Things are growing stale. Teams are catching up to us.
And that's exactly what happened with Chip Kelly, by the way, if you remember. I mean, everybody honed in on Chip not talking to people in the hallway and stuff like that, which was a factor. But when they were winning, nobody cared, But when his plays, when they figured out that his hurry up only allowed them to call like 5 or 6 different plays, and that every defense in the league could figure out which one of those plays was coming next, that became a problem for Chip a lot more than the fact that he was a poor communicator. You need to adjust. And this is going to be the denouement of this season is going to be fascinating to me because, you're not going to fire Nick Sirianni the year after going to the Super Bowl, but he's going to, if this goes up in flames, he's going to be asked to make some major changes. I mean, Lurie isn't going to say, well, Nick, year after the Super Bowl, what are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. No, there's too much talent here for this season to go like it looks like it might be going. So they better win this week, and they probably better win a playoff game or two, or Nick's going to have some things dictated to him, I think. And I don't know how he's going to take to that.
All that said, Les, what's your sense of this one on Monday night? You got Seattle, who's lost 4 straight, pretty desperate, not out of the playoff picture because the bottom of the NFC is terrible, frankly.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to play, even when that team's mediocre. They haven't won there since 2008. What do you think about this one?
You'd sure like to see the Carolina Panthers show up on the schedule right now.
Yes, you would. How about the Detroit Pistons? How about they show up?
Yeah, exactly. They need a game like that. This isn't like that. 2 of those 4 losses in a row are against the 49ers, who are pretty good.
And the Cowboys.
And in fact, last week, Seattle looked a lot better against the 49ers than the Eagles did the week before.
They almost beat the Cowboys 2 weeks ago on Thursday night.
I know. And I mean, Seattle at one point was 6-3. They hadn't really beaten anybody except Cleveland in that 6-3. Now they've lost 4 in a row. They're not a bad team. Looking at their stats, they're a little bit like the Eagles, not in record-wise, certainly not, but in that you don't know really what they are. They're not a great running team. They're not a great passing team. They're not a wonderful defensive team like they used to be. In terms of the Eagles not having won there, I do remember all those games. But Marshawn Lynch isn't going to be carrying people downfield Monday night,
right?
And Russell Wilson isn't going to be running around back there, so we can kind of throw a lot of that out the window. Geno Smith, is Geno going to play? Is he healed?
Yeah.
What can they do about DK Metcalf? I mean, Seattle can win this game. I don't think it's the kind of atmosphere there that they once had where nobody ever went in there and won. It's a different setup now. The Eagles should win this game. And if they don't, I don't know what the hell happens after that. But, it's not going to be like they're not going to jump out to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter and cruise. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to make some plays, and they're going to have to fix some things to win this game. It's not going to be they have so much more talent and they'll just go into Seattle and crush these guys. So I'm really interested to see what they do.
All right, Les, remind everybody again where they can check out your work, please.
LesBowensJohn.com. No apostrophes or anything, all together.
All right, Les, we appreciate it, man. Always fun catching up with you and looking forward to talking to you soon. Thank you, Les.
Thank you, Les.
Great talking to you guys. I really enjoyed it.
Take care, Les. Happy holidays, man. All right, let's get a quick timeout in here, Tone. Good stuff from Les there. Very insightful. Let's get a timeout. Let's come back. We're going to talk to Keith Pompey about what's going on with the Sixers, who rolled again last night. After that, we're going to dive into the Seahawks, really get into their numbers, what's going on with them. We have our NFL segment coming up, as we always do. So a lot in store for you the rest of the way. Don't go anywhere. That's Tone. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take. All right, let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Now, no one go to trust with your finances, right? It's imperative. It should be, priority one here for you. You work too hard not to have your money work for you, right? And I struggled to find the right person for a long time, but I did. I found somebody that I trust and is good in Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business. You need help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751. 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim